I've been diving since 1990, and I learned to dive with Wexford Sub-Aqua Club. So I'm a member. I've been diving now for 30 years. I still only consider myself sort of not a beginner, an intermediate underwater photographer. So I'm still learning, and trying to get better. And I learned to dive with Wexford Sub-Aqua Club that are based in the southeast of Ireland. So what I'm going to do is just imagine if you guys all came across from Manchester or Liverpool via Holyhead, and if you arrived in Dublin on the ferry with your scuba gear and your cameras, where could you go? Where would you like to see in Ireland? So a bit like the introduction to Dad's Army, where I'm going to take you is I'm going to take you from Dublin across to Galway, beautiful Connemara in the west of Ireland, down towards the southwest, Kerry region, back then along the south coast of Ireland, and we finish up in the southeast in Wexford, which is my hometown, and where the ferry from Rosslare to Fishguard goes across in an hour and a bit. Okay, so it's not too onerous if you guys ever wanted to travel across the sea. So the first place we'll stop after we've driven across on the motorway all the way from Dublin to Galway is a little tidal area called the Salt Lake. Okay. Incidentally, just while I was putting this together, if you remember, Monty Hall's done something for maybe the BBC or Channel 4, one of those, and he spent a little bit of time in Connemara, discovering all of the sort of things you can see off the Atlantic coast. So Roundstone, where he stayed, is just directly on the little peninsula piece that's sticking out in that picture there. Zooming in, this is what's called the Salt Lake, and if you look where the red dot is, you'll see that there's a bridge there that you drive over, and in the picture you can just see that the water is exiting the Salt Lake, so that lake fills with salt water and then it empties with the tidal stream, so you get a nice little bit of variety of sea life in it. So if you were to stand at that spot there, take out a camera and take the picture, that's the sort of view that we're looking across at. And it's over on the right hand side there is where we get into the water. So this is myself getting into the water with the rig that I use, which is a Canon 7D Mark II in an Aquatica housing, and 2 Inon strobes. Macro lens is a 70mm macro, and then for any of the wide angle shots that I take, I use a Tacina 10-17. So it's a lovely dive, very shallow, 4 or 5 meters. But what I found fascinating about it compared to where I dive in the southeast of Ireland is the variety of different little small fish and nudibranchs that I wouldn't see on a dive in the southeast. But as soon as you get into the water here, they're queuing up to get their pictures taken. So things like this wrasse here, and I got a nice little bit of video showing this wrasse was putting together its nest, and so it was just fascinating to see lots of small little nudibranchs. I'm sure some of you guys will know the names of the nudibranchs and stuff like that. I don't know the Latin words, and apologies as well in advance for some of the pictures having the sort of copyright on the bottom. Not that finicky about it, it's just that I different laptops with different versions of Lightroom, and I would have had to open up a real old Lightroom version to try and redo the pictures without the copyrights on it. So apologies for those in advance. Again, another little nudibranch picture with some things behind, and then it's a great spot for fish faces. So anyone that likes small creatures, shallow dives, very easy getting in and getting out, well then the Salt Lake is the place for you. Plus as well, regardless of what the weather is doing in Ireland, it's diveable all year round. We take a half an hour drive out further out towards the coast, and we get to one of the Irish. Yeah, Jason, I see it's definitely up your street if you're diving in some of the lochs in Scotland. Further out the road, we come to a family-owned business called Scuba Dive West. It's owned by the Gray family there, and they have a great facility, and that's their own private slipway there. So it's a great spot if you wanted to teach underwater photography. You've got to just from the shore there, you can do a shallow little wreck that they have there. Plus as well, they have conger dives, so you can interact with congers and pretty much be guaranteed to see them coming out of their holes. One of the great pluses that they have was that a ship sank in the bay, not too far away from where their slipway is, and it's called the Julia T. It looks. I was going to say it's Ireland's answer to the Tisselgorn, but that would be a bit of a stretch. But the bow is nice. That picture was taken in 2012, so I've really I think I've dived it once or twice. It would be something that I'd love to go back and try and get better shots at and stuff like that. A lot of the pictures I'll show you of the west coast of Ireland, like I've only been there maybe once or twice, so it's not like my home place of Wexford where I know what I'm going to be taking pictures of sort of before I even get in the water. So that's just one of the winches there as well. Then on the structure of the Julia T. So if you're into your wreck photography, you could spend 2 or 3 days having fun on this wreck in 20-something meters. So from Killary Harbour, and Killary Harbour is the only fjord in Ireland. We're going to take a quick spin out to sea, out to some of the offshore islands, and this one is called Inishbofin Island. And there's if you can afford it, it takes airplanes can land on it, so hence the runway in the middle. You can see the harbour here, where you go in, and when you're going in, you pass by a fort called Cromwell's Fort, which I think then must have been built during the time when Oliver Cromwell was here. And then all along this place here, you have lots of accommodation, hotels, and places that don't shut down. The bars don't shut down at night time, because the old story used to be, I'm assuming it's the same with the islands in England, is that the police couldn't get there because you could see the boats coming at night time. So that's Inishbofin. Incidentally, this island here is Inishark, and that was back in the 60s. Everyone left it, so all the structures are still there. And incidentally, there was one little small hut in it which had a donkey in it, and the donkey died standing up. So for years you could go in and still see the remains of a mummified donkey standing in the corner of the old shed. I'm not 100% sure if the donkey is still there. This is the example of the water visibility. Again, the copyright 2013. You can see back at that stage, I must have been really worried about people robbing images on me and stuff like that. Now I've sort of a little less overly worried about it, but I have come across stories where people's images have been sort of taken on them and stuff like that, and used, unfortunately, without any recompense to them. So that's one of the dive boats that's used there. Again, lots of similar sort of colourful rafts that will follow you around on the dive, swim right up to the camera. Lots of nice underwater reef scenes with fish and nice colours. So from Inishbofin, we could come back then onto land, or we can come around via boat. Scuba Dive West the dive centre up there used to do dive safaris. So they would take you out to the island, you'd dive it, you'd spend the night on the island, and then they'd pick you up the next day and bring you into another island. A couple of years ago, I remember we went on to one of the islands. See, this stuff is all coming back to me now because it's not planned or anything. But the island ran out of water. So there was no showers, no toilets, and the woman in the B&B sort of said, don't worry about it, just go down to the harbour for a swim, and that's what we did. Yeah. This is Aran Island. So Aran Island, the big one there is definitely more touristy. A lot of ferry boats bringing passengers, 30 and 40 people at a time, maybe 100 people for the bigger boats. Can be a bit rough on days when it's when it's rough. We as divers are probably used to these boats when we're out at sea, but you imagine people that haven't stepped on a boat ever, maybe I'd say it could be spooky enough. But that's the Aran Islands, the big long one. Aran Moor, and then Inisheer and Inishmaan are the other two islands, and that's where in Inisheer you get a lot of students there learning how to speak the Irish language and have fun. My friend Nick Pfeiffer, who you'll probably have seen some posts of, he's a marine biologist here in Ireland, and he has his own boat, but he's great because he sort of runs the blue shark trips every now and again. Luckily enough, I was on one of them. Now he doesn't charge for it or anything like that. You just pay for the petrol, so he's not a professional that way. But it was my first time sort of snorkeling with blue sharks. I know you guys have Charles Hood over in the UK who seems to run a very smooth operation, fantastic operation. But I was delighted. Apart from the fact that we were out at sea for a long time, chumming the waters, working with fish guts, and eventually the sort of Atlantic swell does get in on your stomach. So it was nice to get to shore after, but it showed the potential to me for interacting with those wonderful creatures off the coast of Ireland. Nick as well has also gone out. I think he won a couple of years ago. I think he won the BIU PC competition with a picture with 3 or 4 basking sharks in the same shot. You'd see humpbacks, minkies, and stuff like that out there. So the Atlantic Ocean on the west coast of Ireland seems to be a much better playground for humpbacks and whales and stuff like that than over towards our way on the southeast coast. Again, another aerial shot of the Aran Islands, and this one, the big long one, is Aran Moor, and it has a wonderful little feature. It's like just where the red dot is there. It's like maybe, I don't know, someone when they were creating the place decided that they'd put a little man-made swimming pool into it, but it's called Polna Based, Polna BPEIST, so 3 Irish words, and it's a natural formed swimming pool on the rocks, for want of a better word. But a couple of years ago, it was used by the Red Bull divers. So you can see the fella jumping in off the platform. It looks terrifying to me. You can see lots of people came out to watch it. It looked like a fantastic event. But the one thing that really amazes me about this picture, and again, it's a Google screen grab on this picture. My friend Nick, I think, was in the water as a cover diver. The amazing thing is how calm it is, because that's the Atlantic Ocean. Next stop is New York, and it's not often that you would see the Atlantic that calm. Look at it's like something you'd see off, in Monaco with the boats and the yachts just lounging around. It's the Atlantic Ocean. It's not meant to look like that. So you can dive it from boat, so you can just backward roll from the rib outside in the sea and swim in through the lovely archway. and then surface like you would do in the actual pool itself and frighten all the tourists. Back when there was tourists in places like this, but it's quiet there now at the moment. So, incidentally, when on that dive, when myself and Nick were coming out, we came across a compass jellyfish, and I was sort of swimming one way, and Nick was behind, and I could sort of see the potential in the shot. So I was swimming, clicking and flashing, and just waiting to get that little bit of separation between myself and Nick. Took that shot, didn't think too much more about it, but entered it into the Love Your Coast competition in Ireland, and was lucky to be named the overall winner of it, which was a great achievement, a great honor. It's always it's always nice when you do win something, just to get that little bit of recognition. So that was nice, and it was the first time the underwater picture had won the whole thing. Even better than the sort of win is the nice bit of recognition that comes about when you make the local paper, well, not the local papers, the national papers. God, I'm underselling myself here. The national papers. So, I have it up on the wall outside. So in years to come, I'll be able to remember my picture was there at the time when there was articles about no plans for the Irish Gardaí searching homes at Christmas. Lockdown. So it'll be nice lockdown memories. Traveling a little further south, and you can do this. We come to the sort of iconic scenes of the west of Ireland, the Cliffs of Moher. But for me, the best thing about the Cliffs of Moher is you have the chance of running into Dusty, the dolphin. We have a couple of dolphins here in Ireland. I think there's one up in Carlingford Lough called Finn. We unfortunately lost the most famous of them all. Well, we think we lost Fungi, the dingle dolphin. Now, Fungi was a dolphin based in the tourist resort of Dingle in the southwest of Ireland, and an industry was made on the back of Dusty, that boats would go out, and just for the sight of Dusty, people would pay good money. So there's even a statue to him down in the Dingle Harbour. But unfortunately, Fungi we think he's passed. But you never know, he might turn up again. And it'll be fantastic for any fishing village. But this guy here, I think is a guy anyway. This is Dusty. Dusty is the dueling dolphin. And this was my one and only time where we got in with him, myself and another buddy, Martin Kiley, who kindly introduced me to him. And Dusty is the size of a small calf, and it takes a little bit of time to get used to the physical size of this thing that swims so close to you, and also being able to time the shot. And how we were doing it was that myself and Martin would sort of sit on the bottom face to face, and Martin would just point this way or that way, and then I'd know that the dolphin was going to come around this way or that way and take a shot. Incidentally, that shot there is that was one of the last few shots as I was leaving the water, sort of walking up the slipway back ways with my fins on, still clicking under the water. So that's Dusty. So and again, you never know. Dusty has been known to turn up on trainees' first dives in Ireland, so you just never know when you're going to meet him. It's fantastic to see. Long before Star Wars came on the scene, various different monks used to use the skelligs for monastic prayers and stuff like that. So if you're ever out there, now it's hard to get out there because it is such a tourist attraction that you'd nearly need to book months in advance. So you don't just arrive on the day, because if you do, you're not guaranteed getting on a boat, and you also want to make sure that the boat gives you permission to get up onto the rocks, which are a UNESCO sort of heritage site. When Disney were filming some of the Star Wars episodes there, they had very strict controls onto what they could bring out there to make sure there was no vermin or anything that sort of came out, or that Disney didn't adversely affect the nature out there. It's a bit of a climb up, but you get to see where all the monks and all lived. Again, it's a place I've only dived twice in my time here, but again, it's a spectacular day when it's that calm. Lots of guano when you get out there, as you can well imagine. Lots of bird feathers and eggs and stuff like that under the water. But again, typical sort of reef scene. Lots of overhangs and interesting places to swim around down there. Unfortunately, my pictures that do not do the overwater majesty of the Skelligs true justice. Let's take a quick trip inland to a place called Portroe Quarry. Portroe is probably very similar to your Capernwray, I think is the pronunciation of it. Capernwray or Stony Cove. So it's an old slate quarry. It's 40 meters deep in the middle. It was taken over by a professional, or it was taken over by an owner who put in bottle filling facilities, car parks and stuff like that, and proper access to and from it. It's used for diver training and things like that. But there's a couple of little small features on the bottom for the underwater photographer if they're blown out at sea, or if lockdown is really getting them, or winter weather, they can go up there and dive. Very similar to what you were saying about Capernwray and stuff like that. It's cold, even in the summer. It's cold, much colder than the sea. But it's interesting enough to have a big mirror on the sort of slate wall there, where technical divers and stuff like that can check out their rigs and see if there's any leaks, and check out their trim and buoyancy. Incidentally, one of the places where you could base yourself for a trip to the Skelligs is over here in the Maharees area, and there's a great little dive centre there called Waterworld, run by the Fitzgibbon family. And Ronnie himself, the elder, was one of the sort of main guys on the Irish underwater scene back in the day. The great thing about Waterworld is it has its own little bar there as well, but more importantly as well, it has its own on-site swimming pool, and accommodation, and the slipway is just a short walk away. So Waterworld would be a place as well that you could visit to base yourself to dive around Dingle and Kerry. Now, as we make our way back to the home town, my hometown of Wexford, we'll have a quick stop in what's called the gourmet capital of Ireland, which is Kinsale. Kinsale is very famous for its food of all types, seafood, any food at all. You'll get it in Kinsale. But we've got great friends down there in Ocean Addicts, Graham and Anne, and they own this liveaboard. Now, the liveaboard itself doesn't move out to sea, but you can, divers can sleep on there. They get their air fills there, they get their breakfast, and beside it as well, there's also a hotel. But you can see it has a couple of boats there that can take plenty of divers and bring them out to various different wreck sites and scenic sites out from the coast of Cork. So this is one that they used to do. I'm not sure if they still do it. It's UC-42. So it's a submarine, and it's always great. Even though I've probably only done it a couple of times, it's always nice to tell people, yeah, I've dived the submarine. Yeah, this is UC-42. It's in around 20-something meters of water. I don't think people are allowed diving anymore because there's still live munitions on it. But I just thought I'd include the picture there just to tease you. Um, this is some of the various gullies and channels that oceanatics can take you out in Kinsale. Again, lots of stuff for the underwater photography, nice clear water, lots of colorful scenes and stuff like that. For direct divers, other wrecks of interest is one is the Aud in Cork Harbour. The Aud has a history to the Irish 1916 revolution when it was bringing in bullets and arms, and a lot of those bullets and munitions and arms are still lying on the seabed. It's probably, yeah, it's over 100 years now, and any shipwreck in Ireland 100 years or more old has to have a license to dive it. This might be one that might resonate with some of your members. The Kowloon Bridge, which was a sister ship of the Derbyshire. Now, the Derbyshire was one of those big bulk ore carriers that sank somewhere in the South China Sea or somewhere like that, over that Philippines way. But there was great controversy as to why the ship sank, but seemingly there was a fault in the construction, and her sister ship, the Kowloon Bridge, sank as well, broke apart in the same area, sank off the coast of Cork. It's the biggest shipwreck in Europe, as far as I know. It's huge though. It's well flattened. It's like sort of diving on a football pitch. You probably wouldn't recognize that it's still a boat. But I remember diving on it one stage, and I was just sort of rubbing my hand along the sort of bow. As you're swimming along, you're touching, but the plates of the bow were moving in the swell like that, and I just sort of thought to myself, "You were a lucky man that you kept your fingers well away from it." So that's the Kowloon Bridge. So you could dive that, yeah. There's no restrictions on diving that. It's just probably a big lump of metal sticking on the bottom. Now, back to the southeast, which is my sort of local area. Alex or Justin, is there any questions or anything there? Is there anyone there?
Yeah, you're bringing back happy memories for me, Ivan. I dived out of Baltimore. I think I did the Kowloon Bridge then, but a few years ago now. We did another submarine as well, but I think it was in about 40 meters.
Yes, yes.
Really good.
U-260, Kirsty, was that submarine. Yes, it's a deeper dive, and I think you can dive that because there's no munitions on show on it, so there's no restrictions on that.
Yeah, I'd love to go back. I might have to invite myself.
Well, if guys, if any of you ever do fancy coming across, give me a shout, because if you're ever coming around the southeast of Ireland, that's sort of my speciality now, more so than the other places. So my speciality would be the Hook Peninsula here, which is in red. I'll show you a couple of the sites, particularly some of the shore dives. This is Solomon's Hole, also called Solomon's Boat. So maybe back in the time, a guy called Solomon used to keep his boat in there. But it's a lovely arch sort of dive. The only problem with it is that it's the walk. It takes, I don't know, it seems like 5 minutes walking with the weights around your hips and the bottle on your back. And I remember once during the BIUPC, for one of the pictures that started coming up there, I had damaged my ankle playing squash the day before, and I had to traipse up there. But I always think the idea, whenever you're doing these competitions, is to have a couple of dive buddies with you. And I guarantee you, I bet you they carry the weights and stuff for me. This is one of my main Balázs, a Hungarian fella who's moved back to Hungary. But this was a sort of a lucky shot, a practice shot. I don't think I've ever been able to recreate it, but it was sort of one of the first or second shots out of the camera just as he was getting in the water, and it came out pretty crystal clear. Every other shot I've tried to do with this is always, someone's backside is towards the camera, or they're covering their face. Incidentally, someone said that that divers should be holding their mask when they're jumping in the water, but it wouldn't have looked as good. In fact, it looked so good that they put it on the cover of the 50th anniversary of the Irish dive magazine Subsea. So I was delighted with that, because that was my first cover. I don't get many covers, and they're generally in the Irish Dive magazine, but it's nice to get a cover. Sure, Alex Mustard and those fellas that are getting them every day of the week still get a little bit of thrill out of it, but yeah, no, I like it. All right.
Definition of peak of the action there, really.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you. Yeah, I haven't been able to create it. Plus, as well, on the underneath bit, I definitely had to bring up some of the shadows there. I think I've tried that sort of shot, or I've envisaged that shot where there's another diver under the water swimming towards the camera, that way. So something like that, but I'm not sure if I could get that or not. This is the Emerald Isle. This is what I like to call that picture. So it's it's what diving in Ireland is about. It's that beautiful emerald green color. For some of the pictures, I already had some of the settings on them, so if they're of any interest to you, but you can see this was taken in the evening when the sun was going down. The diver is on scuba, but I'm too lazy. It was one of those, I think it was the third dive of the day, and again, another one of those long walks, and I said, no, here, I tell you what, you bring the scuba, nice snorkel, and we'll try and get that shot. So me laying on the surface like that can bring up a nice shot like that. So I do like that picture, and nice color, nice eyes and stuff like that. Even the blue looks well against the green, the blue of the mask. What he's looking at, I couldn't tell you. Maybe there's a whale shark or something like that swimming behind me. That's what we'll say anyhow. Again, the same place a couple of years later, BIUPC day. This was probably the day that I done the ankle in. We got down there. Unfortunately, before we jumped into the water, we had to get in to remove some floating debris and cans of beer which were sort of floating. And what we find in Ireland during August time is you get a lot of part-time mackerel fishermen who will buy new rods and reels and stuff like that, and then just discard the plastic for someone else to clean up. I think, Caroline, you've done great work cleaning the riverbanks in your area, and fair play to you, but it's a constant job trying to.
Yeah, it is. It's never ending.
Yeah, never ending. And I know, we picked up a few masks and stuff like that as well on our travels there recently. But this picture then was obviously set up a bit for the BIUPC with two family members in the background. On that shot as well, I think for the competition itself as well, I couldn't remove any of the scratches or the glare that was coming in through the glass. So I think I probably cleaned it up a little bit on that shot. But again, that made the cover of the Irish Dive magazine Subsea. So that was nice as well.
I think you were robbed that year, Ivan. I really like that shot. Don't know what the judges are thinking.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you. This is another very similar. It's in the same place. It's in the it's a shore dive. It's called the Schlesien. It's a German trawler. Again, another long walk. Particularly if the tide is out and you have to sort of climb up onto the rocks. But underwater, it's a real playground for divers. It's a real little place. I love bringing trainees, and if you were ever over in Ireland with your camera, it'd be one of the places I'd take you if you were up for the walk. So because you get winches on it, bits of copper and brass still lying in on the bottom. This was what I call the protector of wrecks, and I entered it into the British, I think it's the British wildlife photographer, I think. And then someone was saying, "Oh, it was on this picture was on show in the mall." I think that's how you pronounce it, the mall. And I was saying, "Where the heck is that?" And then Alex Buster came in and he said it's just beside Buckingham Palace. So it was a nice place. It's a nice place for that picture to end up. But yeah, it's a nice color and stuff on that. Don't tell anyone, but it's a shallow dive, and it was a solo dive back in the day. Again, the wreck is lucky enough to still have its propeller in place. I remember a couple of years ago, there had been people doing their damn best to try and remove that wreck, or to try and remove that propeller. And I tell you, if they had to remove that propeller and I'd have found them, they'd be removing. This is one part you can cut out, Alex. They'd be removing that propeller from part of their body, because anyone that would take that propeller and ruin it for other divers to be able to see, it's a crime. It's just that's one of those nice things to look at. So yeah, it's nice to photograph as well, and you can try a couple of little artistic ones with putting lights behind it and stuff like that. You know, I remember when I first came across this cave back in the 90s, and for another little article I was doing, I checked my logbook, and in the logbook back in early 90s, I was saying, wow, what a cave. It would be some place to have a camera. And then eventually, years later, yeah, I've had several cameras, but on the day when the light is playing ball, sunlight, when the visibility is clear, it's the sort of a scene you would expect to get in the Mediterranean, you know, hidden caves and stuff like that. This shot as well, last year was taken last year, and that came second in the people in the coast in the same competition. No flashes, no flash in that, all just natural light with a little bit of bringing up the shadows in Lightroom and stuff like that. Again, very similar. This is another cave shot in and around the same location. Again, very shallow, very shallow. That cave at low water, you can actually stand in it, but this one is at high water, so it's full. In those caves as well, there's large blowholes, so you can also surface in those blowholes and have a chat to whoever's on the surface, or frighten the people walking around on the surface. This is the Hook Lighthouse. It's the oldest working lighthouse in Europe, built by a guy called Sir Marshall or something like that. But it's a real iconic structure. It's probably one of the most photographed locations in Ireland, particularly by me when it's underwater. So this is one of the first splits I done on it. Obviously back in 2014. But yeah, no, I like that split, and it was the similar Love Your Coast competition, and one of the categories at the time was people in the coast. And I was looking for some particular part to enter into it, and I said, yeah, there's a picture of a diver. Yeah, that'd look good for people and the coast. So I entered it into it, and lo and behold, it didn't win, came third, but even better than winning, it got on the front cover of the Irish Times, which I imagine in the UK, would be a bit like getting onto the cover of the Sunday Times or whatever. Or the main national paper would be in in the UK. Plus as well, that picture was used on a few tourist brochures and magazines and stuff like that in Ireland. Taken in the same place, nice little spider crab. I saw two or three spider crabs snorkeling there at the weekend, and again, that's diver Bellage there just up above. So it's a nice picture. Won a local competition for the Hook Peninsula. Couple of macro shots coming up as well. That's the one thing I hate. It's the one thing I hate about SLR photography in the housing is being limited with my setup to either going macro or wide angle. And while I love taking those fisheye faces, I'm always thinking, yeah, wide angle is, I get a good shot on the wide angle. So I generally take maybe 90% wide angle and 10% macro. But when I do take the macro and stuff like that, again, that I think is taken with my fins sticking out of the breaking the surface of the water. Some more fisheye faces, and then these guys here, blennies, so lovely color on it. I don't know if it's a tom potter or something like that. But yeah, last VIUPC competition. The week before it, there was tom pop blennies all over the place, and everywhere I looked on the dive, I was bumping into tom pop blennies. And on the day of the competition, do you think I could find any of them? No, not a hope. They were all hiding. Again, just beside the lighthouse there is we have a place here. Summers, this ship's anchor has appeared in it now. There's no shipwreck in the vicinity, but I think it was being sort of salvaged by divers who tried to get it up, and either A, they couldn't get it out of the water, or B, I heard there was customs and excise or something waiting for them, so they just dropped it. That's the story anyhow. How true it is, I'm not sure. Here's a picture for Caroline. Caroline, you see, that's my old dog Lexi. He was lovely, sort of golden Labrador.
He's lovely. Yeah. That's a great shot.
Yeah, and he would he'd jump into the water like that. But I have a collie now, and the collie is just only goes up to his ankles. He definitely doesn't like the water as much as the Labrador. Some of the nice reefs.
In yet.
Yeah. I'll get him in when the water is warm. Guys, I don't have a whole lot longer left. So if you bear with me for a little bit, I'll just take you on one last trip to the Salty Islands. And one of the shipwrecks there, which is very accessible to trainees, the SS Lennox, sank behind the Great Salty Islands, and back around 1916, I think it was running away from a German U-boat when it hit the rocks behind the Salty Islands and sank. No loss of life, thank God. The people on board, I think they were Chinese nationals. They all swam onto the island, and the story goes that when they got to the mainland, they sold watches and stuff like that in order to get back home and stuff like that. This is the bow of the wreck. Over time, and as the storms go by, it's eventually beginning to disintegrate, but it's still nice to go back every winter after a storm to find out that it's still there. The structure is a little bit intact, but it's starting to sort of fall away a bit. So you can still sort of swim in amongst the superstructure. Just waiting now for the screen to catch up. What picture have you got there, Alex or Justin?
Oh, we've got a seal now.
Salty Island seal here, Ivan.
Yeah, brilliant. I'm sort of, I see the seal, and at the same time I'm wondering is the live feed playing catch up? But this is Ireland's answer. It's Wexford's answer to the Farne Islands, although the seals in over here are not as friendly as what you're able to get in the Farnes. They definitely take a hell of a lot longer to come near you. Sometimes you can have dives where you don't see them at all, and they're not giving you that sort of the hug picture to take the seal selfie that you want. But it's nice when you do get to see them. And then as underwater photographers, then what we tried to do, or what we like doing, is trying to get them to come up and scratch our dome ports and stuff like that, and get really close to the camera. So this is the Conning Moor rock. So the Conning Moor, Conning I think comes from like the German word for conning tower. So it's the Conning Moor, the big rock that sticks out of the water, and that's one of the old Wexford divers on it. Typical reef scene underwater with dead men's fingers, urchins, nudibranchs, stuff like that. And again, what I like to do in pictures is to add a diver somewhere into the background of it. Again, very similar to what you'd be used to as well in the UK. Dead men's fingers on rocks with anemones and stuff like that. Whenever you do these reef dives and you have a macro lens on, and if your eye is in and you're diving with a buddy that doesn't mind staying with you, you can look for nudibranchs and stuff like that. Luckily enough, I'm sort of in the position in my own club is that when I get in the water, I don't have to swim after anyone. Most people will just sort of swim around the back of me while I take pictures, and then we'll move off. I think there's nothing worse for an underwater photographer than trying to follow their dive buddy that is swimming along hell for leather. Another nudibranch picture here taken head on. Again, I'm not sure of the species or anything like that. It was sticking out on one of those little kelp things. Last picture, last one or two pictures, and then I'll love you and leave you. This is the Conning beg rock. So Conning, again, sticking up small rock, and this rock covers and uncovers at low tide. Initially, what they had tried to do with this rock was, because the southeast coast of Ireland is called the graveyard of 1,000 ships. There was a lot of shipwrecks in and around there, and we're trying to, because back in the day of sail, any ship that sort of went into this area here, if you can see the cursor moving around, the ship wasn't getting out. It was going to be blown up onto rocks and stuff like that. So they were looking at building a lighthouse here. They put the superstructure in. They came back after the following winter, or after the winter, and the superstructure was gone, and you can just see the metal base of the lighthouse down below on the bottom at around 35 meters. But what I like down there at the bottom of 35 meters is this pink sea fan. But it's dark. It's sort of stuck in an overhang, and it doesn't get a whole lot of natural light coming in. But it's probably one of the most impressive pieces of pink sea fan that I've sort of come across on the travels. and I just always dread the day, and I hope it's not going to be me, that someone bumps into it, or something is dropped from above onto it, or is kicked with a fin. You know, we all know as divers, if we've ever, you know, kicked a bit of coral in the Red Sea, it's a bloody depressing feeling. But I leave you with just one last picture of the same pink sea fan, and this one was taken in 2009. So you can just up here, you can sort of make out, well, basically what I'm going to try and do is show the difference between 2009 and 2013, how far this pink sea fan has grown. So in 2009, you can see the sort of gap here on the left hand side between the two prongs of the sea fan, and then in 2013, it's that much narrower and stuff. So that's my little bit of adding to the marine biology for pink sea fans, is showing how much they can grow in a couple of years, or how slow they grow in a couple of years, a bit like coral. So everyone, thanks very much for your time. It was an absolute pleasure. I hope to see you sometime coming across the sea. There's some great diving in Ireland, some very good dive centres, and accommodation and things like that, and Guinness that would definitely be willing to host you whenever we're all free to travel again. I know it's not the Red Sea and stuff like that, but it's okay for what it is. So thanks everyone. Thank you.